Hello, everybody. This is episode 2 of The Joy of Coding, where I will be hacking on some Firefox bugs without too much of a plan on how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to try and walk you through my process as I do it, just like I would during a normal day of my job. So, without further ado, I'm going to hide my camera, and you can hopefully read what I am writing here. I've got my agenda here. First of all, I really hope you can read this. I've got Richard Miliuski in the background. He's done a lot of work to make sure that the stream is readable. So hopefully you can read the text. I don't have to like pump up my font too much or anything, but let me know in the IRC back channel if you need that. What I'm going to be working on today is printing. Again, we worked on that last week, but this is a slightly different angle on it. I want to get printing support for Linux working with E10S, and I had a version of it working. I had posted it up. I got some review feedback from Carl Tomlinson, who's kind of our go-to GTK widget guy, and he came back to me with some feedback, some things he wants me to correct, so I'm going to start doing that. I've already addressed some of his feedback, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the last piece that he wants me to change, and then maybe by the end of this we'll have a patch that we can put up for review, and Carl can take another look at it. So, what is it that Carl wanted? So, this is my note for printing on Linux. If you check the comments for this video, there's a link to the live note, and you can read along. There's also a link to the bug report in case you want to read up on what's going on in there. But here's where we're at. The problem that Carl wants me to solve is whenever we send the message back down from the parent process saying we've selected a printer, because we show a dialog in the parent process, the user will select a printer that they want to print to, and they'll set various settings like how many copies and like the, whether or not to print it in color or in grayscale or something. And whenever they hit OK, we send a whole bunch of information down to the content process to actually kick off the printing. And we've been doing a good job of serializing all of the information that's in that dialog and sending it down to the child. But one thing that we haven't done a really good job of serializing is the actual object that represents the printer. In GTK world, that's a GTK printer. We get that from the dialog in the parent process, but what we end up having is a pointer, and you can't send a pointer down to another process. The content process has no access to the memory pointed at by that pointer, has no access to basically the printer object. Basically, sending down the pointer to the content process makes no sense. So what we need to do is send enough information down to the content process that it can kind of reconstruct the printer. It can get a sense of what printer it needs to print to in the child process in a way that makes sense for that child process. The way we do that, the way we did it on Windows anyways, was that we sent down the name of the printer, and then the content process queries the operating system for a printer with that name. It gets a handle back, and then we print to it. No problem. Except on Linux, it's a slight problem, because on Linux, it's not very easy to just like pass a name to the to the GTK framework and get a printer object back. You can't just do that. What you have to do is enumerate all of the printers, and one by one you check to see if the printer name for each printer will match the one that you're looking for, and if so, well, then you found it. And what I was doing before was I was using this function called GTK enumerate printers, and it was spinning its own like event loop. So here we're back with like the nested event loop stuff we were doing last week, but because requesting printers might require network access, I guess what goes on is GTK will block by, like, you have a choice when you call GTK enumerate printers. You can pass this boolean to say whether or not you need it to block or not block. And if it does block, then it will spin an event loop while it calls your callback and pass pass your callback one printer at a time until it's finally done, in which case then the nested event loop exits, and then your program execution will continue from where you call GTK enumerate printers. So nested event loops are kind of evil. We don't really want them, and at the very least, if we're going to use them, we should use them in a place where it makes sense. Because one of the problems with nested event loops is that things can change. Like if you have program execution occurring and like lines 1 through 10 execute just fine, and then 11 through 13 that implements some kind of nested event loop. While that nested event loop is executing, bits of memory could switch. Like we're servicing events that could cause things that we assumed to be true to no longer be true. Like for example, in lines 1 through 10, we may have instantiated an object and set a particular attribute on it or something, and then we run that nested event loop until some condition is met, and then we exit that event loop. Now everything might have changed. That object that we referenced in lines 1 through 10 might no longer exist, or maybe the attribute changed, or who knows what happened. So you have to be very clear, and you have to think carefully about when you introduce one of these event loops, so that you don't actually accidentally put yourself in a position where you have these weird cases where sometimes things have changed out from underneath you. So what I'm going to do, what Carl basically suggested, was we postpone getting the printer until the very end. So whenever you kick off a print job in Gecko, we get this like surface that we're supposed to print to, and we do all this layout, and layout figures out how the pages are going to look, and it blasts all this stuff down onto that surface, and eventually that surface, I believe, is how it works for GTK anyways, it's flushed out to a file, and then that file is handed over to the printer, and the printer prints it out. And all that occurs kind of asynchronously. And what Carl wants me to do is make it so that we only query for the printer at the very last moment. So just before we actually hand off the file to the printer, we ask the GTK, okay, now find the printer. Because we're already kind of doing this asynchronous stuff, might as well just do some more, query for the printer, find the printer, hopefully, account for the case where we don't by doing something smart, but chances are because the user selected it in the dialog, like the general case, like the common case will be that the printer exists, and then blast it out to that printer, which is already asynchronous. So we're basically putting in another asynchronous step in there in the event that the printer has not yet been found. Because that's the other thing. Because we now like this GTK printing stuff, the back end of it has to account for both the multi-process and the single process case. In the single process case, the GTK printer has already been selected, and we already have it, and we don't have to worry about it, and so we don't have to do that finding of it. But in the multi-process case, that's when we have to worry about it. So there's going to be a little bit of branching here. I'm not too jazzed about that, but that's just kind of the way it is. What else? So that means that there are some portions of the code that, like, we're moving the query to get the GTK printer till the very end, and one of the problems with that is that there's some code earlier on that checks that GTK printer for certain values, and the solution to that is, on the parent side, we will stuff those values inside the NSPrintSettings GTK object, which holds a bunch of information about printers and print settings, and whenever it's serialized and deserialized on the content side, then we can just use the information from NSPrintSettings GTK instead of having to query the printer. And that will actually work in both the multi-process and single process case, which is nice. We don't have to branch there. And the only place we're going to have to branch is is whenever we either choose to asynchronously fetch the printer or just use the one that we already have. So that first bit, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me open up my editor here. Where am I talking about? It was in supports PDF. That's what I wanted to call the thing, but I made reference to it. Where? One moment, please. Here, yeah, okay, so this is NS Device Context Spec G. And this is in a method called getSurface for printer. This is basically the part where it decides where to blast down the layout and graphic stuff that it's computing whenever it's actually doing the print job. And it gets information from the print settings, which is fine because we instantiate, we've serialized and deserialized the print settings, and we've recreated it on the child side. And so we're able to do this without a problem. This is the problem, though. It checks to see whether, or if we haven't said, the GTK print settings object can have this information about whether or not we're supposed to be printing to a file instead of sending it to the printer. And if we don't have that information, then we check to see if the thing that we have is actually a printer, and if so, this is where we would fail in the multi-process case, because MGTK printer would probably be null pointer at this point. Then we check, there's this bug in GTK version less than 2.24, where it will always return true if for GTK printer accepts PDF and accepts PS, regardless of the printer's capability. But then we set the value based on accepts PDF. And we can't do this if we don't have the MGTK printer. And so that's what we're going to have to tear out in here and use the print settings instead. So I think that's not too bad. Let's give that a shot. Okay, so what's the plan? First, we need to add the supports PDF getter and setter to the print settings GTK header and implementation. So that's just some boilerplate stuff. Let's do that right now. So we already have something like this, get force print selection only and get set force print selection only are special things that only GTK seems to care about, and we can use that as a model. So we'll call it get supports PDF, and we'll have it return supports PDF, which is something we will define in a second, and then set supports PDF bool a supports PDF, and we'll say m supports PDF equals a supports PDF. Perfect. And then down here we will have another bool supports PDF. So we've got our getter and setter all set up. It's defined. We actually don't have to do it in the implementation over in Print Settings GTK CPP. That's nice. Although sometimes I find it weird whenever there's code inside of a header, actual implementation in a header. That always kind of weirds me out. But that's just me. I think I missed a semicolon. So this should compile. Let's make sure of that. While we're waiting on that, let's take a look at this next step. If it compiles, if it gets to the linking stage, I'll be reasonably confident that, yeah, all right. So I think I can check this off. So now we need to, the place that Carl suggested that we populate the supports PDF setter, to actually set it on the parent side, is in this function called NSPrintDialog widget GTK export settings. So let's take a look at that. Print dialog GTK. So here it is. Just so it's clear what this does, I think there's a comment in the header about it. Export means to copy from GTK to NS. So whenever you open the dialog, the GTK print settings dialog, we import, which means to copy a bunch of the default settings from NS in this case stands for Netscape, I guess, because this is really old code. But we'll copy the information from the NS print settings and we'll convert it into something that the GTK print dialog can understand. And then export means to take whatever the user put into the GTK print settings dialog and reconvert it back into something that Gecko can understand as a print settings, NS print settings thing. So the import phase is not what we care about. The export is probably what we care about. We can do it there. So that's where we're going to, good. So it built just fine. That's good. And now I'm going to open widgets, GTK, NS print. What was it? Print dialog GTK. GTK CPP. I don't think I need that anymore. Okay, so we are looking for export. Not export frame printing, but export settings. So here's where we can do it. Because this is definitely running in the parent process, we know we have access to the GTK printer. Like if we're in this block, because we actually check, we say and printer. So we know we have a printer if we're in here. And here's where we actually like set things up. So I think we should actually do it right here. And the code that I'm going to emulate is actually in that last file I was looking at. What was that? It was under widget GTK NS print. No, device context spec G GTK print settings. It was here. I wonder if GTK major version, like this is some kind of global thing. I hope it's available in my scope. I'm curious to know major version, if it's used elsewhere in the code base. There's this like big define here. Maybe I should use that instead. No, it seems to be okay. I can probably use it without too much fuss. Maybe I have to. Well, let's just see what happens. So, So let me just think through the logic here. This is if we don't, this is when we're getting the surface. If we don't have a format and GTK is printer. So what we need to do is set the format to be equal to whatever is in the print settings instead. So that's good to know. We're actually going to be moving this. This is all a mess, by the way. If you're kind of cringing, oh, apparently my microphone volume is quite low. Sorry, I didn't realize that. I will turn up my volume. Oh yeah, sorry. Holy smokes, that is quite low. Hopefully that's better. Hopefully you can hear me now. And I'll move my microphone down a little bit. Let me know in IRC if there's anything else you need me to do to make sure that what I'm doing is sensible. Okie dokie. So we're going to be moving this chunk of code over here. And it's not just copy paste. We need to think through this. So I don't think it's copy paste. Like this comment is still true. Format. So this logic is actually not what's interesting. It accepts PDF. So it's greater than 2. So we set it to accepts PDF only if we pass these conditions and passes these conditions and GTK printer accepts PDF. Okay. So what I can do, if GTK major version is greater than 2, or GTK major version equals 2, and GTK minor version is greater than or equal to 24, like that stuff. It's kind ugly. And GTK printer accepts PDF and GTK printer. I can probably clean up the formatting here a little bit, but let's not worry about that just yet. And we're going to set, we're going to say ANS settings GTK. I think it supports PDF. I might need to rename that instead of supports to make it accepts. You know what? I'm going to do that. Accepts PDF. True. Actually, I wonder if it'd just be better to put this whole condition. This whole condition will match. Like the result of this big Boolean will match what I'm putting inside accepts PDF. I'm wondering if it just makes more sense to be like ANS settings GTK accepts PDF, set it to the value of all of this anded together, or ORed, and then and this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to try and improve the readability right now. Bool. Can read accepts PDF equals GTK major version greater than 2. Here, this is where we'll put this little bit. This will hopefully improve the readability. Or GTK major version equals 2 and GTK minor is greater or equal to 24. I will actually do it like that. Carl can hammer me maybe on style if this isn't how he wants it. Okay, so maybe we can do ANS settings GTK. Whoop. Accepts PDF to can read accepts PDF and GTK printer accepts PDF. I don't know if that's any more readable, to be completely honest. But let's find out. GTK printer. So that should. This will not compile right now because I've changed the name to accepts PDF. So let me go back and change what I did there. GTK print settings GTK H supports PDF. Supports PDF should now be accepts PDF. That one, that one, that one, that one. I think I missed one because I didn't do global. That one, that one, that one. All right. So that should work. Build. Oh, we have a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that, hang on, this keyboard I'm using doesn't have an F7 key, which allows me to scroll up in Byobu. Class NS print settings GTK is no member named accepts PDF. NS print settings GTK. Pretty sure I put it in there. Sorry, it's set accepts PDF. Right. I made a mistake. Mistakes happen, people. Okay, here's another one. MGTK printer was not declared in the scope. Right, I just assumed it was called MGTK printer. It's actually just called printer. How about now? Will you build now? Come on. Do it. Yes, all right. So now we should be setting this correctly, and now it's a matter of reading it on this side. So I can get rid of that. What I can do is like bool format equals mgtk print settings get accepts PDF. Oh yeah, I'm gonna have to need an intermediary. And there's like a shoot. Okay, I have to do this like return value dance. Okay. Accepts PDF, and then we have to hand it bool. And we should probably not. We should be consistent about our casing. Accepts PDF. NS ensure success. And then we. Wait a second. Get accepts PDF does not return a return value. Returns a bool. That's all wrong. I'm not doing this dance. That's crazy. I can just do this. So that's actually quite nice. I can just do if format equals that, and I can copy this. Whoop. Whoops. My Vimfoo is not amazing. So I think that'll work. Okay. Alright. Let's see if that builds. Let's see if it likes it. Forward declaration of GTK print settings. It doesn't like invalid use of incomplete type. GTK print settings. Get accepts PDF MG. So okay. So it doesn't know the header's missing. An incomplete type means like it knows that I'm dealing with something called print settings, but it doesn't know that like what the members are defined on it and stuff. So, which is strange because we're including as print settings gtk.h. So, did I screw up somehow? AKA struct GTK print settings. Struct. What are you talking about? What is underscore GTK print settings? Is that something that's generated in compile time? What are you talking about? Nope, never heard of you. AKA struct GTK print settings. Incomplete type. Okay, let's think here. So, this is the exciting stuff. I am in a pickle. I don't know exactly why I can't call this method. Settings. So, let's see. What even is it? Oh, you know what? It's because it's not one of our special... It's like the actual GTK print settings. It's not the actual, like... It's not our print settings. We should be using M print settings, not GTK print settings. Got it. Got it. So, where is it? Accepts PDF. We should be just using M print settings, because GTK print settings is an actual GTK print settings object, which does not have the get accepts PDF thing defined on it. Woo! There are too many things named, like, class NSI print settings says no member named get accepts PDF. Fuck you. Not true. It's actually true because I didn't define it on the interface. Is there? So what are these ever used? Force print get GTK printer? Yeah. And how do we do it? You just do, oh, yeah. We QI it for NS print settings GTK. Okay, well, we can do the same thing down here. Do we ever do anything with this print settings GTK? Print settings GTK? Do we ever? No. Okay. Well, we can do the same business. Do it on mprint settings. Print settings. Not mprint settings. That's probably fine. And now I should be able to use print settings GTK. Too many things named print settings GTK or GTK print settings or blah 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 blah. Should probably do some better naming. That's something, again, like I'm not really worrying about naming just yet. That's something we could deal with in, that's easy stuff. I don't want to get tripped up by that stuff. It's easy stuff that we can take care of in review. I just want to get it working. Get it working, then we can worry about all the polish and the naming and all that sort of surfacey stuff. The real trick is not getting bogged down. At least this is my trick. Don't get bogged down by that sort of thing. Defer it till later. Like here, I can totally just take down a to-do and like find better naming, like figure out better naming inside NS device context spec, and then I just move on, so I don't have to worry about it. And I know I won't, like I'll take care of it later, but right now I'm worried about bigger fish. I have bigger fish to fry. Okay. So where am I at now in my plan? Set the support. We've done that. We've got it setting. And we actually, yeah, we need to do this part so that in a multi-process case, we pass that information down. So that's the next step. You'll notice I'm also not I'm not testing as I go. One of the problems with this printing code is we really don't have a lot of tests. Printing stuff is kind of hard. We don't have a testing framework for the printing stuff. It blows. And it's not the best feeling working with old legacy code where you don't have any tests and it's complicated like printing where there's like a billion ways for things to branch and go wrong. But I plan on kicking the tires pretty hard and getting people on Nightly to kick the tires pretty hard with printing stuff once this patch is done. But I will run it through some paces. In this case, what's important is being able to try to print in PDF and PostScript and to a printer and have that all just kind of work. If that works, I'll feel pretty good. Okay, what's next? Right, the serialization, deserialization stuff. That occurs in NSPrint options GTK. Over-engineered like crazy. That's the other thing I wanted to say about this printing stuff. Over-engineered like you wouldn't believe. I'm not casting blame. Printing is hard, but man, all these interfaces and generic things, they're confusing. They're very confusing. So, deserialized print settings and serialized print settings. We need to add something new to our IPDL. We'll call it, so it's under embedding components printing IPC pprinting.ipdl, and we're going to add something here for bool accepts PDF. And then we can, when we serialize to the print data, we will say data GTK print settings, skip. So we can use settings GTK. Okay, so data accepts PDF equals, I think we can do, oh shoot, how does this work for booleans? I think we can just do like true or false in this case. So let's just try that. So in this case, the item we want to query is settings GTK and get accepts PDF. Oh, right. And how does that work? Does it actually return it? No. Yes, it does. Right, that's what happens. Get accepts PDF. And then on the other way, when we deserialize, we'll say settings GTK set accepts PDF, and we'll pass it data accepts PDF. And I think that'll work. Now, because I altered the IPDL, it's probably just a good bet to just rebuild the world. Sometimes you can get lucky and you'll rebuild like the IPC IPDL directory, and then basically there's like this chicken and egg thing I talked about last episode, where you kind of have to like compile IPDL to the headers to the generated C code, and then it will fail to compile. Like that generated code will fail to compile with the other stuff, because I think there's a timing problem. But then you build the other stuff, like the stuff that's depending on those headers, and then that will work. So there's like a failure. You have to go through failure in order to get to success. Sometimes you can just sidestep that if you just do a full build, and it doesn't, because this I haven't pulled or anything, so this shouldn't take too long. And in the meantime, we can keep moving forward. So change the code. We actually did this. So that is done. We're moving forward pretty quickly. That's nice. Now this is the hard part. This one step is probably going to take the remainder of our time. I'm planning on doing this streaming for another, what is it? I like to stream for about an hour and a half. So about like 50 minutes. We got 50 minutes. This is going to take a while. I don't know if we're going to get through this, but we'll try. This is the part where we're adding that new asynchronous step in the event that we're in the multi-process case, where we have to go query for the printer based on the name before we actually send the job over to the printer. So let's think about that. Wow, that's still printing, or printing. Everything's printing. While that's still building, let's figure out how we're going to work that. So all of that occurs inside widget GTK NS device context spec G. This is like basically NS device context spec, and this is true for the Windows and OS X implementations as well. This is where the kickoff to actually do the printing occurs. Everything up till then has been like capturing. It's been about capturing settings and making sure that we have all the information we need to do the job. But the actual printing gets kicked off inside these NS device context spec things. Don't ask me why, but that's where it happens. And the part we're concerned with is this function here, method, I should say. I'm always confusing functions and methods, the names of them anyways. It's too much transitioning between JavaScript and C. Okay, we have this method here, end document. Whenever the layout and graphics are done creating this thing that we're going to be blasting into the printer. It calls end document to say, okay, go ahead, send it to the printer. And then mprinter is, I guess, M2 printer means, are we actually printing to a printer? Because sometimes you can print to a file, directly to a file. And this is where I noticed where it seems like GTK will automatically print to a file and then sends that over to a printer. That's kind of not too surprising because GTK is Linuxy, and Linuxy loves to work with files and file handles. So here when we're actually printing, when the user has requested to print to a file, we actually get the name of we get the path to where the user wants to put the file, and then we move the. How does it work? How does it work? Test file. I knew this. Come on. Mspool file. Right, so mspool file is the name of the thing that I think we wrote out to, and then you move it. We just move it in the end and set the permissions on it instead of deleting it. Which happens, like, whenever we actually print to the printer, we have this mspool name, I guess, spool file something. We pass the spool file over to GTK print job send, and this is the thing that actually kicks off the print job, like the final step. It's out of our hands at this point, and whenever it's done, we get print callback is fired, and that's up here, and that's when we actually remove the file. We remove the spool file. So that's all background. Yay, we built. That's great. So the next step is figuring out how we're going to do this bit. Well, we have the two printer. Hang on, GTK printer. Doing GTK printer. Begin document. Yeah, we're gonna have to move this part. So there's multiple steps to this. So maybe I should break this down further. So we have to move the creation of the GTK print job out of begin document to end document. I know that some people have been saying, I think it was Nick inside the RC channel has been saying that, like, whenever I flick back and forth between stuff quickly, there's like this sudden pixelation and everything gets all blurry. I apologize. I do a lot of flicking back and forth. I don't even realize I'm doing it. Hopefully you're able to read what I'm reading without too much difficulty. Move the creation of the print job out of begin document to end document. What is the next step? The next step is to let's see. Let me think. End document. Okay. So we are going to. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking on my feet here, so just give me a second to think this through. We're moving the creation of the GTK print job out of begin document to end document. And is there any yeah, okay, so now I know. I want to know if there's any other place in here that we make reference to MGTK printer. Because I think we should just take MGTK printer right out. Because we don't need it. Like, why is that true? Hold on. I think it's dangerous to have MGTK printer still around. And I say that because we have these two cases where in the multiprocess case, we don't have MGTK printer set. In the single process case, we do. And I'd like to be as general as possible so that we don't have to we don't have this member variable for NS device contact spec GTK where it might be set, it might not be set. I don't really want to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this. Don't think we need it. And then the place where it was getting set, like this print settings GTK get GTK printer, that's what we'll check. This is what we'll check inside the end document method to determine whether or not we can just go ahead and start the print job. I think that's what we'll do. Does that make sense? Now, the other thing I want to think about is re-entry. How is this going to be structured? How is this whole like callback thing going to be restructured? This is where you miss something like DOM promises in JavaScript when you're down in like callback hell in C-land. Let me think. Okay. Well, I should probably think out loud. You're watching this, I might as well think out loud. Here's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about how this whole reentry, like how this asynchronous thing is going to work, because you can call a callback. You either Okay, I should talk about what I'm thinking about. So I'm trying to think of the workflow here in end document because of those two cases. I wish you could see. You know what? Here, I'm gonna unface mute so you can see me because I'm gonna draw in the air a little bit. I gesture a lot when I'm working. I gesture. So you have end document get called, and then what's gonna happen is we have the GTK printer, or we don't. In the GTK printer case, like when we have it, we're going to go right ahead and kick off the asynchronous job to start the print job. In the multiprocess case, we don't have the printer. We do this extra step. We do this extra step to go get the printer, find the printer, hopefully, and then we do this. So I want to like use the same code to do this last step to actually kick off the job. And then there's going to be this like branch thing at the beginning to choose either go directly to the final step or go to optional step 2 in the multiprocess case. So yeah, there's a 1, 2, 3 thing going on. 1 is the branch. 2 is optional in the you either do it in the multiprocess case or you don't do it for the single process case, and then step 3 happens for everybody. That's how I'm kind of thinking about it. I'm not sure if it was worth on camera muting, on face muting, but maybe I just wanted to show you my mug. All right, I'm gonna hide again. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. Now, how am I going to do it? So, first thing I need is more information. What kind of, how are the callbacks going to work? What form can these callbacks take? Let's look up the documentation, the GTK printer documentation for GTK print job send. I actually have the documentation for the version of GTK that we use on my machine locally, so that's nice. Print job, I think. Excuse me. Print job send can take a GTK print job complete function callback. So we have to provide a callback of this form. So I will actually put a link to that in my notes. And also copy the actual code itself. Whoop, no, didn't mean to click on that. Copy that. I wish Evernote would understand that I'm pasting what looks like pre-formatted stuff and paste it as code. That's all. I could probably just, I don't want to get too distracted. Don't want to get distracted. Nope, click the wrong thing. There we go. Pre-formatted. Hey, monospace. It looks like code because it's blocky and weird. Okay, so that's what when we're finally done, that's the form of the thing we send off, and then we have to worry about the form of the callback for querying for the printers, and that's here. Enumerate printers, you get GTK printer function. this is what you get. And I will paste this code. Monospace. Something like that. Right. Okay. Okay. That wasn't just a waste of time. I got that information for a reason. And it's because I want to think through how this is going to work. So suppose we create two functions to implement these like function signatures. Suppose we have like a static void method, and we'll call this one like do job. Oh, wait, no, job complete. That's not actually doing the job. Job complete. Do we actually, in the callback, all we're doing is deleting the file. So this can probably stay the same. Oh, I see. GTK, they changed. In GTK 3, they changed the signature a little bit. Okay. Cool. On job complete, we'll do the same thing. I don't think there's any reason we can't just use the same callback. So the real trick is the enumerator. The enumerator. So what we'll do is, let's think that through. The printer enumerator function, we'll pass it to GTK enumerate printers. What it gets is, actually I can show you an example of us using GTK enumerate printers. Maybe that will give me some inspiration. Printer enumerator. Here we go. It gets passed a printer pointer and some arbitrary data that you can have it set up right at the very beginning with some data that you want to pass it. In this case, what I might want to pass as that data might be, we think, probably the name of the printer that we're looking for. Or is there anything else we might want to send instead? I can't think of anything. No, I can't think of anything. So suppose we have this like printer. What do we call over here? Printer enumerator. It returns a boolean, and that boolean is used to bail out of the enumeration whenever you can choose. If you return true, I don't remember actually what the signature is. False. True means stop enumerating. We found what we needed. We don't need to loop anymore. False means keep them coming. Keep the printers coming. So as soon as we find a match and we kick off the print job, we can probably return true, and then we're done. Okay. Okay. If you're wondering why I'm being a little apprehensive about actually writing code right now, it's because I'm still just like thinking through how I want this to look and function. It's starting to form in my head. I'm pretty sure I can just like add this enumerator thing that will, like, it's probably not as bad as I think it is, but I'm always worried whenever I introduce something new, and especially asynchronous, into pre-existing old code that's not used to something being like adding a new asynchronous step. So I'm a little apprehensive. Show no fear. Show no fear. All right, let's get in here. Let's pretend. Let's add a new method or a new function. This is a static. Oh boy, a static function that returns a boolean. And we'll call it printer enumerator. I think that's a great name. And it takes a GTK printer and a G pointer for some data. Okay. So what we're gonna do... Oh, and then there's this also, like, I forgot, I got distracted. I wanted to remove MGTK printer. Let's get rid of it. Don't need it. This whole thing can probably just go away. Begin document should just return NSOK. I don't even know if we need to implement this. Does NS device context spec? You know, I'm going to put that back for a second. Does NS device... do we inherit? We do. We inherit from NSI device context spec. So we have to implement it. We can't just assume that some parent class is going to return NSOK for us. Okay, so we'll return NSOK. Nothing to do. And then down here, we already know that. We'll want to do some kind of check like that, probably. Now that I think about it. No, we can't. We can't. By the time we... Shoot. So, I don't know what we're going to do in the failure case, because this method is going to exit, and we're still going to be looking for a printer, and we won't know if we never find the printer. The best we can probably do right now is, like, maybe log something to the console. I'll have to talk to Carl about that. I wonder what the plans would be for dealing with errors in here. Okay, well, let's not worry about that right now, but let's write it down. Write it down. What happens in the printer enumerator if we can't find the right printer, or the printer for some reason, if we can't find the right printer, how do we display this malfeasance to the user? I don't know if that's the right terminology, but it's the one I'm using. All right. So tore that out. Don't need that anymore. That's not going to work. mprint job. Does anyone else use that? End document. Get send. Okay, we should probably also get rid of mprint job. Oh, need that colon. Okay. Oh, now that we've cleared that out, we can probably get rid of this and that as well. Okay. Also, I should point out, if anyone's watching this and you see anything I'm doing wrong, or you see like a glaring hole in my implementation or my approach, or you have suggestions, I'm all ears. Just because I do this for a living doesn't mean that like I'm infallible. I make mistakes all the time. So like come chat in #live coding or live hacking, sorry, #live hacking on IRC. Maybe make suggestions about things I could be doing better in the code I'm working on. Maybe you see a leak that I've introduced, or maybe you see you have a suggestion on a better name or something. Hey, we can like do Twitch codes Firefox through mconley. I don't know, just an idea. But come be interactive if this is a thing that that interests you. Where was I? We need to create... I kind of obliterated... Okay, that's what it looked like before. So I guess get rid of that. So we need to create a print job. End document, no print job. The operation was aborted. Well, that's not going to work anymore. So this is where we branch. At this point, I'm going to put in some documentation. Who knows? Maybe this will stick around. Maybe I'll cut it out whenever it goes up for review. We'll see. But it's good for me to sort of keep in mind what is happening, what's going on. At this point, we might have a GTK printer set up in NS print settings GTK. Or we might not. In the single process case, we probably will. In the multi-process case, we definitely won't. I should probably go into more detail about what this means. To do more detail. So, add another flesh out documentation or flesh out comment in end NS device context spec GTK and document, clearing up what the hell is going on. So let's, if we don't have let's do the do. If we do have a GTK printer already, then we're good to start the print job right away. How's this gonna work? We have all these things that we have to pass around, like the title of the document. The printer object we can get, that's not a problem. Then we also have to pass the GTK print settings and the GTK page setup. Let me think here. I'm just thinking about, so like that's fine that you can run it in here, but in the printer enumerator, when we find the printer, we also have to call this print job new and then print job send thing. And that means that in the printer enumerator, we're going to need the information of like the MGTK printer, MGTK print settings, MGTK page setup, which means that we, instead of just passing the name of the printer, we should probably be passing ourselves, in this case the NS device context spec, so that we can get access to things like the print settings and the page setup from within the printer enumerator. I think that's how it's going to have to be. Let me just think that through one more time. Whew. Live hacking. It takes a lot out of you. But I'm having a good time. But yeah, thinking on your feet, it's pretty exhausting. Let me think here. All right. I like it. So the plan of record is maybe there's a way we can do this without causing too much repetition. I think here. I just want to avoid having to create this job, add ref, the spool file, send the print job, and do that exact same thing again. So I feel like we should be putting this inside a function of some kind, or a method, I should say. But I'm just trying to figure out how to structure that. Let's see. Oh, it's a cliffhanger. What's he gonna do? You put it inside a function, then what happens? Okay, well, let's think about it. Suppose we have this static function that, like, I say void because I don't know if there's anything useful it can pass back. I'll say void for now, but like, do job. I'm just going to call it do job for now. I don't know what it would be passed. But suppose in here, we do stuff like this. So something like that. Now this will not compile, but just bear with me for a second. Let's just think it through. So inside do job, we construct the title. The title will need, what's a title? Where did a title come from? Oh, print job new. A title. It was passed to begin document. We'll probably need to stash that inside the device context spec so that we can use it in end document. Start page, end page. Do we? Do we need it? Isn't that something we already have? Title? Isn't that something that we were already kind of been given? Isn't that something that should be inside print settings or something like that? Well, let's not go down a rabbit hole. Let's assume not. So we're going to have to add a title. I'll store it as a C string, and a C string and title, and then we will we need to copy the string that comes in. And a C string. Strings kill me. How do you... This is something that I'm certain, like, just is, you don't even have to think about it whenever you when you do it in JavaScript. Copy a string to a new character buffer. The preferred way to allocate is one of the following methods. To Unicode, to new C string. All right. Now, how do we avoid leaking? When you think about instantiating something, you should also think about its lifetime. Like how long would it stay alive and how do we destroy it? So to new C string. You should use NS3 to deallocate the result when you no longer need it. But I kind of want it to be like an auto string. Like I just want it to go away when we don't need it anymore. I don't have to worry about malloc and dealloc, or whatever it is. So, what do other people do? To new C string, null principal, ensure origin to a origin, get origin, auto string equals null pointer, auto C string. Auto C string, maybe that's what we want. NS auto C string. I have a feeling that's what I want, just because I'm scared of malloc and dealloc. I don't want to leak. I don't want to leak, man. What does... You know what? We have this other C string, mspool name. What do we do there? Do we ever... I see. Free. Link buff. I see. That does copy the string, and then we free it. I understand. Well, we could do that too. Get some spool name equals buff. Buff equals some character buffer. And then you... Wow. Alright, I'll do auto C string for now. S, what was it? S auto C string. Just because it's something I'm comfortable with. And later on in review, you know what? I will, again, take a note. Do I have to use NS auto C string for the title in NS device context spec GTK? Why not just an NSC string? Because I'm scared. Okay. And document. That's where I was. So here is where I would want to set it. So we would say like mtitle dot, what is it, set? What do you use? Set. How do you append? Probably append. Begin writing? What does one do? Come on, this is supposed to be easy. NS auto C string. I said I knew what I was doing with this thing. You'd think I'd remember. Oh, you know what? I probably just have to... Yeah, I just pass it in the constructor. All right. Except if it already exists, that doesn't make any sense. How about, okay, auto C strings defined inside headers. What do other people do? M content type inside media resource. Great. Okay. What do people do inside? Seriously? Come on. Come on. Come on. Maybe it was used inside the header. Content type. And then you just instantiate it. Maybe you just do like M title equals A title. Maybe it's that easy. Really? Is it that easy? I'm never certain. I am never certain. It is so painful working with strings down here. Like, come on. I just want some certainty here. I want some certainty. Security parser header. And I have these like auto C strings like M output. The append, you can append it as well. Truncate. Assign. No, that's not right. Truncate. Append. It's probably append. Do you concur, documentation? Append. What? Assign. Probably just do that as well. I probably just do assign. mtitle dot assign. Am I right? Yeah, let's see if it likes that. This needs some thinking about up here. We got the title, so we would have enough information to pass down if we just passed the device context spec GTK into the enumerator as the data. We could do it. So then maybe do job should just take like G pointer spec. Like if do job takes the device context spec, so in this case it would take this and the single, like we need to, if we have GTK, no, we have a GTK printer, then we can like do job pass this, else we do like then probably we have to do that. You know what? because both are like this. We can just do that, and then so we'll do job, else we'll like GTK enumerate printers. And what do you pass GTK enumerate printers? You pass it printer function. So you'd pass it like printer enumerator, and then the data would be this, and then destroy a function to call if data is no longer needed. Nope, don't need to do that. And then wait, so false. I think that is what Carl T wants. And we get rid of this. And then inside this like printer enumerator, you like find the printer whose name matches the one inside the settings. And then we do job, passing in a data. And I think that'll work. It's complicated. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine. But that's printing for you. I wish printing was better. But if like I've kind of browsed around, I've looked at other printing code in various other projects, and it's all like this. I think printing code is where like common sense and straightforwardness goes to die. If you've seen some beautiful printing code, ping me on IRC, send me a tweet, email me, wake me up in the night, knock on my door, and show me, because I'm curious. I've never seen really great printing code, and I'd love to know what that looks like. Okay. So this structure is, I think, how it's going to work out. There are clearly some things in here that are missing. We have to determine whether or not we have the printer. And then we might have to do some like casting to G pointers. But I think the structure is sort of sound. Like, we're going to have to, inside the print job, cast back to an NS device context spec GTK and interrogate for title, printer, print settings, page setup. That's the other thing. Print settings, spool, name, spool, file, etc. We're also going to need to, inside the enumerator, stash the We'd have an argument to do job be the printer. Maybe that makes most sense. Spec. You know what? Why does this... I mean, we control the alpha and the omega here. We should make this just be the NS device context spec GTK. Spec. And then we can have a GTK printer here. So this will allow us to construct the printer. Now, there's also destruction. How's destruction going to work of the printer? We've got this printer thing that we instantiate. Well, we don't actually instantiate it. We get a handle to it back. Do we have to worry about, like, destroying it? You know what? I don't think so. GTK printer new. I don't think you have to worry about destroying it. Something tells me that that's right, but I really should make sure. When we enumerate the printers, we get a we enumerate the printers, we get handed something. We get handed a printer. Note that here we go. You need to ref the printer if you want to keep a reference to it after the function is returned. Right, so we'll need to, inside our printer enumerator, we need to ref it, and then when we're done, do job, we need to unref it. Okay, that makes sense. So let's make a note of that. So, ref. How to ref the printer. Now, just thinking here, in the single process case, if in do job we unref the printer, anything else that might have wanted the printer inside the GTK print settings, it's going to get unrefed from the GTK print settings as well, because in the single process case we don't add ref it. So maybe we should, like, if we have a GTK printer, this is kind of dumb. Maybe add ref the printer here. We'll unref it again in do job. And then here we unref the printer. Add ref the printer. So no matter what, that the printer has an extra reference to it, and then when we're done the job, we unref it in both cases. And that should be okay. Bit of a mess. Little bit of a tricky mess here. But like I said, that's printing. So we kind of have a sketch of what we need to do. It's not fully formed. This will definitely not compile. I have a sentence if we have a GTK printer. Like, that's not any programming I've ever seen. So I've got to convert this into actual stuff. I have a bunch of to-dos as well. Let me make those more explicit. My editor highlights those, which is nice. So each of these will be like an item to complete. Should probably explain the add reffing business. Okay. Lots of to-dos, lots of to-dos. Data removed. Okay, where should we get started? Here's the other thing. Whenever you kind of sketch it out like this and you create you create this sort of vague sense of how it should be executed, and you put all these to-dos in, you kind of do speculative work without compiling, you end up in a state where you definitely won't compile. Like right now, I will not compile. And I'm going to limp forward to a point where I will compile, but there might be problems in the stuff that I've already written that I wouldn't have noticed had I started trying to make it like compilable right from the start. But just because it compiles doesn't mean it's right, and I'm going to be banging on the tires anyways. I'm not so worried about that. I got, what, 7 minutes left? That's not a whole lot of time. Let me see what's a good thing to do in the last 7 minutes. Where am I going to tackle first? Let's get rid of this weird English phrase in here, if we have a GTK printer. That's something that we can figure out. If we have it, that's a good start print job right away. So what were we doing before? I excised some code. Let's take a look at it. Excuse me, spec GTK, not CPP. What? Spec GTK? What? Oh, it's just G. Why? I have no idea, but it's just G. I got rid of this thing where we set the GTK printer here. Print settings GTK. We did this. Get printer. I have a feeling are we going to use that a lot? We'll probably use that a lot. I don't want to cast it each time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, and let's print settings GTK. Does this need to be a COM pointer? Well, that's what's done up here. We query interface, NS print settings GTK. Okie dokie. And we'll do that in the constructor, or the init function. So I'll say mprint settings GTK equals print settings G. Wait, no, that's wrong. Settings GTK equals do query interface. If not, print settings GTK, and then that and that. Then was there anything else that used it? Print settings GTK. Just the stuff down here, actually. The stuff I used before. That's actually quite nice. I don't have to do that again. What I can do is that. Great. So that should work, I think. Okay. And then where were we? End document. So if we have a GTK printer, so how would we know that? Well, we would say GTK printer equals, that's, all right, yeah, GTK printer equals, and then what did we do? We said GTK print settings. See, like this is, there's GTK print settings, and there's print settings GTK. This kills me. That's so confusing. Print settings GTK, and I introduced this. Do I figure out better naming inside estimate? Print settings GTK versus GTK print settings is crazy confusing. Putting that down there. GTK printer is print settings GTK, and then we need to get the, what is it? MGTK get GTK printer, get GTK printer. If printer. There. If printer. Then do the job. And then we have to add ref the printer here. Okay, well, I've got about 40 seconds left. I'm going to cap it here, I think. This has, we made really, really quick progress at the beginning, and then it kind of got into a slog as we got into more theoretical stuff towards the end. But I think I know my way forward. from now on here. I mean, I've got this vague structure, this kind of sketchy outline. Carl and I will probably go back and forth reviewing it for a bit, and we'll bang it into a shippable state and make sure it works both in the single process and multi-process case. If you're interested in helping that out, helping us test it, keep an eye on the bug. The link to the bug is actually in the comments below this video on Air Mozilla. Follow the bug. Whenever the bug is resolved, closed, and it ships in Nightly, try printing some stuff out if you're using Linux on Nightly with E10S enabled and disabled. Try printing some stuff out. Print some PDFs, print some PostScript, whatever. And you can help me test it out. You can also watch the, just follow my notes as I continue to work on this. Like, I'm going to go back to my desk and I'm going to keep pounding on this. And if you're interested in tracking my progress, just follow my notes. There's a link to that in the comments to this video as well. I think I'm going to cap it here. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again next Wednesday, same time, same everything, and we'll see where we're at. Maybe we'll have a different bug to work on. Okay, that's it. Bye now.